In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure candidates test to suit your use case. So let's get started. So here we have the Test Center admin application. Let's go to test, the test menu. Under test menu, this time around, we're going to select the settings sub menu. Under the settings sub menu, you will see the following. You will see the option to enable logout button. So what this option means is if you want candidates to be able to log out during exam, then you enable it. Or if you don't want them to be able to log out, you can disable it. So once you disable it, there won't be any logout button once the candidate begins an exam. The second setting is you can decide to show candidate's photo by the right hand side during test. So let's say a candidate's photo exists and you want the photo to be displayed. You can select this option and the photo will show. So that's another option you have. You can hide it. If you hide it, then the photo will not show. Then the whole exam page will be stretched towards the right side. Then you can decide which calculator you want to use, whether you want to use basic calculator or scientific calculator, or you don't want to use calculator at all. If you choose that you don't want to use any calculator, then the candidate will not be provided any on-screen calculator. Then this quick view has three options. We have per subject, single, and tree. So I'm going to demonstrate what I mean by this. Let's go to the manage submenu. Under the manage submenu, we want to use Clara as an example. So I'm going to filter by Clara reg number. So let's license this particular test. So I'm going to go to license, then provide my account password. So now this test is licensed. So let's take a test using Clara reg number. Let's enter the reg number Clara, then we'll proceed. So these are the subjects we set for Clara. So let's start. So what I want you to take a note of is I want you to see the quick view. So this section where you have attempt 0/50, this section is called the quick view section. So this is what I would like you to take note of. So let's log out and let's change some settings. So let's go to the settings submenu. Let's go to show photo, let's hide it. Then quick view, let's choose single instead of per subject. So I'm going to save this. Now let's go back to the test. So I'm going to enter Clara again, then proceed, and we'll start the exam. So let's take a look at the difference here. Now the photo of Clara is no longer showing on the right hand side because we said it should be hidden. Then another thing you should note is the number of questions here is now over 200. Before we used to see 0 out of 60 or 0 out of 40. So if you select that the quick view should be per subject, what that means is the number of questions that will be displayed here will be based on the current subject. But if you change that quick view to single, it means it's going to combine all the numbering of all the subjects. So if you have 60 English and let's say 40 from the rest, it will add up all the numbers and then display everything. So in this case now we have 200 questions altogether for all the subjects. So that is how you can change from per subject to single. Choose the one that suits your case. So let's say you want the candidate to see all the question number at a glance. You can change it to this format. So let's take a look at how it goes. So you can see that by the time we switch to number 61, it switches to mathematics. So if you go back to, let's say, 59, we are still on math. So let's say that means English stopped at 50, right? So each subject should be 50-50 question. So English stopped at 50. Then you can see that if you use your next or previous button, it will automatically switch subject once the number crosses to the next subject. So you can set this quick view to suit whatever taste, whatever format that you want. So let's take a look at another option for the quick view. You can change the quick view to a tree format. So these tree formats, let's take a look at how it looks like. Then there's another setting I want to talk about before we move on with the test. You can also change full screen. You can decide to disable or enable full screen. By default, full screen is enabled, but if you disable it, you'll be able to resize the exam interface. So let's save this and we'll move on to the test application. That's the test center client. So here we have the test center client. Let's proceed and start. So now you can see how the display is for quick view whose type is tree. So if you choose tree as the quick view, it will be structured in a tree-like fashion where each question number will be lined up vertically. So you can click on any of them, you click next, 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 next. If you go to English, you'll see English at the very top, then followed by maths, followed by every other subject. So this is the structure for, so if you prefer this particular structure, especially for theory exam, you can use this structure for theory exam where it will show 1A, 1B, and so on and so forth. So let me show you how theory exam looks like using this format. Let me set a test for James. So this time around, I'm going to pick candidate James. Then I'm going to take SSC theory, just one subject. Then let me pick a subject like chemistry. Then let me choose 1 hour, then proceed. Okay, so now I can see that by clicking recent, then I've seen what I just created. Then let me license this test as, let me enter my password, then license. Now that I've licensed this particular test, let's check it out. Let's see how it will display this theory test. So I'm going to type James, then we proceed. Okay, so now we have the following. So section 1, we have we have question 1, then 1I, 1. So you can see that this tree-like structure is very suitable for theory questions. So you can easily switch to, you can see the exact structure of the question, just the way it is in the actual exam. So you can go to section 2, then you'll see that under section 2, you can type, you have 5A, 5AI, and so on and so forth. So you can just, or you can use next to navigate if you don't want to click on any of the, if you don't want to click on the question number directly. Okay, so this is basically how you change various settings as regards the exam interface. So let's take a look at another setting. So let's go to the setting section. Now we've talked about full screen, and okay, we've talked about full screen. This full screen will allow you to be able to minimize the test window. Now let's talk about exam mode. So this exam is a very important setting. We have 3 options. The default is exam. Exam, if you choose exam option as your exam mode, as your mode, what that means is candidate can neither view result nor correction after submission. So once they submit, it locks them out and they can't see correction, they can't see result. If you choose practice mode, what you want to do is you want candidate to be able to view results and also view correction after they submit. Then we have another mode called the mock mode. Mock mode allows candidates to view just their results, no correction, just their results after they submit the exam. So that is a very important option. But please note that once an exam has commenced, you can't change the exam mode. So even if I change the exam mode now, it won't reflect on existing or ongoing tests. So make sure that you change the mode before any test commences. So another setting is this. This setting applies to results. So you can change the default. You can decide that each subject should be graded over 100. So even if the number of questions is 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever, the result will be displayed in such a way that every subject will be rescaled to 100. The mark will be rescaled to 100. But that's the default setting. So you can change your so let's say you want each subject to be graded over 50 or over 10 or whatever you want. You can change it here. Mind you, whatever figure you apply here applies to the next setting, which is where do you want to apply this obtainable mark? You can say that this obtainable mark should be applied to each subject, just like the way I explained, or you can say it should be applied to overall test. So overall test means if I choose 100, even if there are 5 subjects and maybe I have 200 questions altogether, overall test means all the total mark will be rescaled to over 100, irrespective of what the actual total mark is. But if you choose on each subject, that means each subject will be over 100, not the total mark, not the sum of the marks from all the subjects. So you can choose where you want this obtainable mark to be applied to. Then if you don't want to apply this obtainable mark at all to anything, just choose none. So what that means is the software will just use the total score. That's the raw total score and the raw obtainable mark. It won't rescale anything. So we have another very interesting option, which is negative marking. So if you want to penalize candidates that wrongly attempted a question. So let's say a candidate selected option A and maybe got it wrong, and you want to penalize that candidate for that. You can set the negative marks. That is, the software will subtract that mark every time a candidate wrongly attempts a question. Then the last setting is the minimum time to submit. So this one is very interesting. So if you want a candidate to this can help you prevent a candidate from submitting accidentally. So let's say you don't want anybody to submit until after a given time. So let's say I want all the candidates to submit only after the first, let's say 30 minutes. So let's say you have a 1 hour test, right? And you don't want anybody to submit until they've exhausted 25% of the test duration. You can set this option. So once you set this option, it means even if the candidate feels it's done, it can't submit until 25% of the test duration is elapsed, right? So this setting can help the candidate prevent accidental submission, especially if they've not really finished up, right? So these are the options you have for controlling or configuring the test. So I'm going to set this 25%, and let's take a look at what happens. Let's take a look at what happens now that we've changed it to 25%. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to continue with Clara, then I'm going to proceed. Then I'm going to start, and now I have the following question. So let me attempt to submit at this point. So now that I've made an attempt to submit, I can't do that because I'm being told that you are not allowed to submit until you have spent 7 minutes 30 seconds. You'll be allowed to submit 4 minutes 32 seconds from now. So the software will force you to patiently wait and cross-check your work until that percentage of time is of the total time is spent. Okay, so let's just keep answering some questions. So this is basically how you can control a lot of things about the exam. So you can change the quick view, you can change a lot of things about this exam. And if you notice now that we are no longer on full screen, you can move the exam around since we disabled full screen. So you can see that you can move the exam. So if this is what you want to have, you can change this. You can have the setting, and you'll be fine. So I'm going to submit this test, but I can't do that because I've not exhausted my time. So I'm going to log out and change this back to anytime. Then let's go on with the test. So I'm going to change this to Clara, then I'm going to type Clara, then start the test. and let's attempt to submit. Now that we've disabled that 25%, we can now submit the test. Okay, so let's try one more example. Let's try an example where we have a different exam mode. So let's say the exam mode is practice mode, and let's save this. Then let's go to manage and set a new test. So I'm going to set a test for Toby. So this time I'm just going to pick, let's say mock. I'm going to pick just 2 subjects. Then I'm going to pick, let's say, commerce and let's say government. Then let's leave the time as 1 hour and let's proceed. So the next step is to license this test. So I'm going to type in my password, then license. So now that the test is successfully licensed, so let's take a look at what happens after submission. So I'm going to type Toby, then proceed. Then let's start. So I'm going to quickly answer some questions. So it's time to submit this test. So I'm going to click on submit and let's see what happens. So since this is practice mode, you can see that the exam didn't log me out automatically, and now I can see my results. I can get detailed analysis on how I perform. I can get to see how I perform by topic as well for each subject. And I can print my results. I can also see results in a tabular form as column chart, as pie chart, and so on and so on. So this is how practice mode works. So you'll be able to see results, and you'll also be able to see your correction. So this is correction. So it's telling me now that option A is wrong. The right option is C, and I can get to see a breakdown of why the answer is C. So the same thing goes to English. I can go back there and just check all my works and see which one I got correctly and which one I got wrongly. So this is basically how practice mode works. So mock mode is similar. The difference there is you won't see correction in mock mode, but you'll see results. This is how you configure candidates test.